Okay, so in the last section of class for our first day here, let's go and check out the documentation. When you first open up the MP documentation portfolio, you're going to see that each of these separate documents that are included within here are loaded in kind of a thumbnail view. So you can see you've got Introduction to MP, you've got the MP reference, you have the NCI reference, you have the parameter reference, Working with Tool and Operation Parameters Applications Guide, the Working with Tool and Operations Parameters Guide for X9. So this is kind of the old way of working with tool and operation parameters. This document is the new way. And not that it's not a good thing, but the new way has added a whole new layer of complexity for working with tool lists. So that's going to be some fun stuff to play with because it's brand new. So it's one of those things where CNC Software has gone and written a bunch of new logic and functionality, and then they've just kind of released it and said, here you go play with it, go figure it out. So it's pretty powerful as far as giving you the capabilities to go and get the data when and where you need it, but it's also a new set of tools that, you know, as post developers, we're going to need to learn and explore and figure out how to use. So it's going to be kind of fun. There are a couple more documents in here supporting Renishaw probing, so documents that deal specifically with posts that have integrated the Renishaw Inspection Plus or Productivity Plus package, I guess it is, that Mastercam now sells. There is an MP debugger user guide. A document down here about working with the enhanced tool table application. MP bin X. This is a guide that is for showing you how to encrypt post processors if you want to lock it to a specific SIM number, or maybe set some timing code where the post is only allowed to run for a certain amount of days or shuts off after a certain date. How to convert a mil post for router, replacing a post in the machine and control definition. There's a pick off, pull, cut off application guide. This is for anybody that's getting into lathe that has a dual spindle. And a guide here for working with machine and control definitions. In addition, you notice there's a folder here. If I double click it, this is the What's New guide for all of the old versions of Mastercam from Mastercam X. So what's new for X posts, what's new for X2, X3, X4, and this is specific to post processors. So if you want to go back down memory lane and see the evolution of the MP language, you can do that by reviewing these documents. Or in some cases, you may want to see kind of where, you know, if a customer comes to you and says, hey, I need a post for X5 or X2 or X8, what was available as far as the MP language was concerned. So, for example, if you go look at a post from X4 and a post from X6, they look different because at X5, the internal formatting of the way that certain things looked changed a little bit. Let's go back and look at the real quick to wrap this up, videos. So there's a video in here, the debugger tutorial narrated, so it shows you about using the debugger. There's an about this portfolio section, And if you look in legacy docs, this actually gives you the legacy chapters from the old MP reference guide. Specifically, I believe the reference guide volume 2, because this is the advanced MP language concepts and applications, talks about subprograms, talks about how 4-axis wire output, how lathe threading cycles work, how lathe CAN cycles work, break of motion, rotary processing, that kind of stuff. So, MP reference documentation, introduction to Mastercam posts. Let's start down here at the beginning. So this section introduces some of the most important features and structural elements of the MP language that is used to develop Mastercam posts. To be able to modify a post and understand the material in this guide, you should have a basic understanding of how a computer program is structured and operates. At a minimum, you should understand how the syntax of a programming language affects program operation. Now, when they talk about all this stuff as far as it relating to a computer program, I think the computer program, I hope at least, that we all should know in here is G code. So when you talk about syntax, what do we mean? Well, we're talking about the actual characters and the formatting of the codes that are running on the machine, right? If you've got a Fanuc control and you want to do a line, it's going to be a G01 move. If you've got a conversational control, it might be line, L-I-N-E, instead of G1. So, what is an MP post? At the heart of an MP post processor is a combination of two files. The post processor executable, that is MPDLL, and that is what actually converts your toolpath data into the NC code. And then there's the post processor customization file, the PST file, and that's a script that is read by MPDLL to customize the NC output for your specific machine and control. And editing and customizing the PST file is the scope of this guide. It's also the scope of this class. So typically, when most users refer to a post processor or a post, they are actually referring to the PST file, not MPDLL. And that's the terminology that they use in this guide. When they say your post, they're talking about the PST file, even though technically the post processor is MPDLL. So the MP post processor customization file is written in CNC Software's proprietary scripting language called MP. Now, what's it stand for? I've heard milpost. It was created very, very long ago by the father of the Summers brothers. So Mastercam was started by a bunch of brothers called the Summers, Mark, John, and Brian. And their dad, John, was the one who originally wrote the first post processors and wrote the MP language. It is a custom scripting language. It is based loosely on standard C as far as the original formatting went, but the formatting has changed significantly over the years from the original very simple, very text-based MP language. So before a post file can be used, it must be linked to a machine and control definition. When you select a machine definition in Mastercam, the proper PST file is automatically selected. Each PST file also includes a section called post text, and we looked at that. That is at the very end of the post processor, and that's used to customize the Mastercam interface. So Mastercam reads this data when you load the machine definition and modifies the interface accordingly. For example, lists of available drill cycles, coolant options, all those kind of things can be read from the PST file. It also includes text and miscellaneous reels. So if we look here at the MISC values for this operation, they're all set to generic because there's no post loaded. If I go and select a new machine definition, and let's use a 5-axis machine, Haas VFTR series, and we'll see that this is now a 5-axis mill that is pointing to 5-axis mill post. And now we go look at that same operation. All of these strings have changed. So what we've done is used text strings that are stored inside the post processor to set up the graphic user interface for Mastercam. Now, technically these don't do anything yet. It just displays a string for you. But what it allows you to do is write this string, and then as a programmer or user changes these numbers, we are passing the value to the PST file. And then we write our own logic inside the PST file in order to do something. What do we want to do? Well, we could do all kinds of things. This is the Haas VFTR post, for example, is one of Mastercam's generic posts, 5-axis. And if you look at the miscellaneous integers, each one of these does something. Miscellaneous integer number 2 tells the post processor whether to output the code in absolute or incremental coordinates, so either G90 or G91. MISC integer number 3 controls the reference return. Do we want to output G28 for our reference return or G30? So if I leave it set to 0, I'm going to get G28. If I change the value to 1, I'll get G30. Miscellaneous integers 4 and 5 are bias settings that allow us to pass a number to the post processor as a solution for a rotary calculation for both the primary and the secondary axis. And we can use this especially with head style machines to pre-wind the head to make sure that our cut stays within a limited rotary travel range. Work shift controls whether the output of the XYZ coordinates are relative to the WCS origin or the tool plane origin. So if we're working on the Haas VFTR, which is a trunnion style setup, and we want to use work offsets that we're going to dial in at each rotation position, then we may want to allow it to come from the WCS or from the tool plane origin with a setting of 0. Otherwise, the default, which is WCS origin, means that we only have a single work offset origin for all of the different rotational positions on our workpiece. So if we get back to our default generic Fanuc 4x mill post. By the way, when we post this out, currently we're still set to our stripped down post, the hello world post. So if I look here, This is my NC code. When you're in the middle of doing post development, a lot of the times it's beneficial to be able to select a post processor on the fly. The normal process for selecting a post processor is to go to the machine group properties and go to the machine section here and use the replace button to reload and to load a different post processor. But there's a secret. So I've got these 3 operations selected and I hit the G1 button. And you'll notice right now it says active post, generic Fanuc 4xmil.pst, but the file name, the post processor name, is shown in gray. And there's actually a select post button. Now, why would there be a select post button here? Normally, it's for a case like this. If I go down to this machine group, number 3, you can see, oh, I've reloaded this one. Oh, here we go. If I go to machine group 2, you can see X4 Johnsford Mill, but if I hit post, it actually says invalid file name. So here's a case where I've gone to post process, it's got a machine definition stored in the Mastercam file, but it can't find the post processor. So this is a case where it will actually let you go and use the select post button. It gives you a warning. You're selecting a post processor that may not match your machine and control definition. Do you want to continue? Yes. And you can pick, the post that you want to use. Say okay. And we're going to get some code. Oh, nice. Look at that. Let's go ahead and restart it since it just died on us. We'll go open the file again. Okay. So, like I mentioned, as we're going through the process of developing a post processor, it can often be useful to be able to just pick a post processor on the fly. So I've selected these 3 operations. I'll hit the post process button because I've already got a machine definition loaded and it can find the post. It's going to gray out that box. Control, Alt, Shift, and the letter P, as in post on the keyboard, Control, Alt, Shift, P, will activate that button. Little trick for you. So in this case, instead of choosing the Hello World post, I can use the Select Post button. I have to say yes for the warning. And now I can actually choose... Oh, that's right. I saved it in X9. I can choose X9 mil posts. And I've got generic Fanuc 4x mil, and I'll use the backup version. Lets me know it needs to be updated. Do you want to update the post? Yes, I'll update the post. Close that. Okay. So Now this happens to be an X9 version, so I've done some customization to this. Let's close that out, and instead of that one, let me select a different guy here. And we're going to select 2017 mill posts, and let's just go with generic Haas 3x mill post. Okay, and we get 3 drill operations. Okay, so we're coming up on the end of the first class. Part of what I'd like you guys to do is to start reading through this documentation on your own. Now, I don't expect you to go through every single PDF and read every single page. I mean, it's hundreds of pages. If we go to the introduction here, it's 156 pages. We are going to start, when we start looking at next class, we're going to start getting into the actual functions of the post. So what makes the post processor tick? Post blocks, variables, strings, start looking at all that stuff. Okay? But I'd like you guys to read through, at least through the post blocks section and the variables and strings section. So you've got working with post blocks, basic post block structure, post block types. Quick reference here about post blocks and post lines. And then the variables and strings section. And that would take you down, if you go all the way through the quick reference summary, it's about 90 pages. Now, it's not, 90 pages of super small text all on, there's a lot of like bullet points and stuff like that, but it will take you a fair amount of time to get through. So I don't necessarily expect you to have gone through it all by, next Thursday, next class, but try to get through that, within the next week, by next Tuesday, kind of a week from now. And, this is all stuff that we'll be going through. We're not going to go through it, line by line, word for word. It's stuff that we're going to explore as we work with, variables, strings, as we output stuff, as we look at formatting. We're going to look at each one of these little pieces. We're coming to the end of class. Has anybody got any questions for the stuff that we've covered today or about the course in general? So, thank you, Gene. Sorry, I know you were trying to ask me something in the middle of there and kind of like, I kind of got lost on my concentration for a second, and I was kind of confused by what you were asking me. So sorry about that. Sorry, I got a little off track with that question. But we're gonna go through and try and just teach you as much about posts and post processing as possible. It always starts out a little slow here, so I know it's and it's hard sometimes to just sit through a really long lecture, but I think you guys will really get a kick out of going through the office hours. And by the way, office hours is literally open question and answer time. I mean, I can come up with practical examples to fill the gap if nobody's got anything right off the bat. But really, this is about where you guys have questions. Hey, how do I output this kind of thing for my code? So we do have some questions. Let me get to these here. Yeah, this is a good point. Jeremy says if you right-click on files within the PDF portfolio, You can extract the individual files, so you can use a different reader than Adobe. That's a really good point. Yeah, if you don't like to use Adobe, or if you want to do it, I guess, maybe on like an iPad or something like that, you can do it that way, which is kind of cool. Nicholas is asking, when are you going to send out the survey so we can give feedback on what we are looking to learn specifically? I'll get that out within the next couple of days. It's not going out tonight. It'll probably go out before next class, so probably Wednesday. It's a good question though, so I'll make sure to get the survey out, and I'll try to to cover what I can within reason. So, for example, 5-axis post-processing, we're really not going to get into any of that. I have a whole class on 5-axis post-processing because it is just a different animal. So, if you want to get into doing a whole bunch of 5-axis stuff and all that stuff, well, and so here's the thing. You have to learn the basics, and you have to learn the basics well before we can get into 5-axis. So we are, I'm happy to cover some of that stuff when we start getting into our office hours, but really, I have a full class that covers how to edit and how to use and how to set up the generic Fanuc 5x mil post. So it's like an entire class on 5-axis post-processing, but I promise you, you really want to go through this class first before we get to that class, because there's so much stuff in MP that is possible, but you have to know how the language works. You have to know how MP processes the data, and you have to know how the instruction list works, and things like a string select table. For example, I'm responding here to Lord Whatkiss. Are you really comfortable with string select tables? Have you written them, from scratch? Not for the post. Yeah. So little things like that, you're going to want to learn. And formatting. Formatting is another big one. Making sure that all the formatting is correct. Knowing when to make edits to format assignments and when not to. But Zeke says, not that I've gotten to work properly. Yeah, that's the thing, is that MP's got a lot of these tools that we're going to go through and learn to use and to work on. And like I always tell people, like you've got to get this class under your belt before you jump into the other classes. I've got another post class that I teach that is specific to 4-axis lathe post processing. Oh, and by the way, I'll include all that stuff in the survey. When I send out the survey, I also mentioned some of the other classes, not because I just want to sell you other classes, but everybody's got different needs as far as what they want to get out of post-processing, and it is such a broad and deep subject that I can't cover it all in one class, which is why I break out these specialty classes. I've done like a short, like an 8-hour class on buffer files before. So just a separate class that just covers buffers, just talks about using buffers. I will probably try to develop and come up with a new class on tool tables, how to format tool tables, because it's a big subject. I mean, there's a lot of tools and tricks that just go into doing the tool tables. Now, we are going to talk about tool tables during this class. We're just not going to get into doing heavy edits to them. Now, we will do a lot of this stuff as well during office hours when we get into, making edits to posts. How do I get it to do this? And, there'll definitely be things that I think that you'll see me do and that turn out to be really easy to do, and it's surprisingly easy. You'll be like, wow, that was really easy. And then there's some stuff where you think that it's going to be easy, And then it turns out to be like crazy hard to actually get it to do it with the tools that are available. So, we'll explore all that stuff, and you know, with a lot of this stuff, the best that I can do is kind of point you to where the answer is, and help you try and find an answer, and that's what I really enjoy doing. I want to help you get as much out of the class as you possibly can, and to be able to teach you about the MP language and how to edit post processors so that you can make the changes that you need. You get the code that you want. To me, there's nothing more satisfying than knowing that I can go into any shop pretty much anywhere, and I can set up a post processor that will be plug and play. Everything that I want the machine to do is included as some type of input in the Mastercam file. And anytime something needs to be changed, I change it in Mastercam and I post process it, and it automatically kicks out my setup sheet for me, and it automatically increments the rev number, and I've got the name of the person who post processed that code, and everything's traceable. And it's a nice feeling, when you have struggled with something for a while, and then to now end up with a post processor that does exactly what you want it to do every time without having to make those hand edits. It's a good feeling, and that's where I want to help everybody get to. Okay, and looks like, so as part of our subscription on the eApprentice to all the legacy stuff, we're going to put that buffer class up there. So that's going to be up there. We're going to really try and include as much content as we can for that. Not that we're trying to sell you another product, but we're just trying to make it work for us as far as being able to deliver good content at an affordable price, that really, we want to knock people's socks off. We don't want you to get something and go, well, I just felt like they were trying to sell me something else. That's not our goal. We want to, we do need to make money to be in business to feed our families, but we want you to feel like, wow, I got more than I expected to get for the money that I spent. That's always the feeling that I want everybody to have. So yeah, we're coming to the end of class. Our first class here looks like we've hit just about everything. Class dates, yeah. So I will in the survey, I'm definitely asking. So my next class I'm targeting is for August. So we're doing June for this course. We have a 1 month break for July. And then August, I'm targeting my next post course, looking to either do the 5-axis class or the 4-axis class, or the 4-axis lathe class, doing a dual spindle lathe. I think, as far as I've seen, we've had more interest in the 5-axis class, but I'll include that there. I know I definitely, by the end of the year, I want to get both of those post classes in the mix. And then, some other milling courses, and I've got an advanced 5-axis class that's just focusing on the module works toolpaths and some other stuff. So I'll definitely include that in the survey, and definitely like to get everybody's feedback on what they would like for training options beyond just this class. So yeah, thanks for the feedback on that, Jeremy. I'll definitely make sure I include that, and definitely get the survey out sooner rather than later. Any final questions before we wrap up for the night? Oh, thank you guys. Thanks for hanging out on a Tuesday, especially you guys on the East Coast. If anybody's out here, I know it's late. So yeah, thank you guys, and we've got class coming up Thursday, and then again on Saturday we'll do our first office hours, and we'll jump in and do some fun stuff. So, all right, thanks everybody. Have a great night. I will see you all on Thursday.